Welcome back to Bible and Blues, and today we're going to do a Bible reading of 1 Samuel chapter 25. We're going to learn about a woman named Abigail, and just be right back. We'll talk about that. In 1 Samuel chapter 25, we're dealing with David before he became King David. And David is actually one of my favorite characters, people of history of the Bible. And many things happened to him. And this period of time is before he was king, but is during the time that Saul was chasing him, and he was trying to get, he was trying not to go overboard, and he was trying to follow God's tenets when it comes to when it comes to leadership and people who God puts in place of leadership. Not long before this, David had been had the time in the cave where he actually snipped a piece of Saul's cloak off, and then later on showed it to him from a distance, saying, "See, I could have killed you, but because of God and my love for you, I did not do that." And so here we see kind of an opposite side of him. In this, we have 1 Samuel 25. We have David. Then we have Nabal and Abigail. Now, Nabal is married to Abigail. We'll see this in here. Let's just go ahead and read this. Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him. And they buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David moved down into the desert of Paran. A certain man in Maon, I'm not going to be able to pronounce most of these names right, who had property there at Carmel, was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surly and mean in his dealings. He was a Calebite. I'll stop there and kind of talk a little bit about Abigail, because Abigail is a character I kind of wanted to really talk about. Abigail, there are many women mentioned in the Bible, and many oftentimes they talk about how beautiful they are, and how obedient they are, and all these things. This is one of the few times that you hear she was an intelligent and beautiful woman. But her husband was surly and mean in his dealings. Doesn't sound like he probably has a wonderful marriage, but there it is. We continue in verse 4. While David was in the wilderness, he heard that Nabal was shearing sheep. So he sent 10 young men and said to them, "Go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name. Say to him, 'Long life to you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that is yours.' Now I hear that it is sheep shearing time. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them. And the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs was missing. Ask your own servants, and they will tell you. Therefore, be favorable toward my men, since we come at festive time. Please give your servants and your son David whatever you can find for them." In this case, what had happened was David and his people had shown up, and had we'll hear in a little bit, that they provided a wall of protection for the sheep that were up there, which was very important because it actually was really dangerous being a shepherd. And the people who were out there in the fields, you would often lose one, and to wild animals, to dangerous things, cliffs, rocks, all these things can happen. Mostly wild animals. That was a big part of a shepherd's job. Also thieves. And while they were there, they provided a little bit of protection for the shepherds watching Nabal's sheep. When David's men arrived, they gave Nabal this message in David's name. Then they waited. Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? My servants are breaking away from their masters. Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and water and the meat I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to men coming from who knows where?" David's men turned around and went back. When they arrived, they reported every word. David said to his men, "Each of you strap on your sword." So they did. And David strapped on his as well. About 400 men went with David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. David's mad. Okay. You know, he provided this service kind of free of charge. And, you know, he was like, hey, you know, I did this thing for you. Now you do this thing for me. You know, and Nabal's answer was, you know, not. It was curt. It was kind of insulting. And you know, who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. So he most likely did know who David was, but he pretended like he didn't know, because David was kind of a big deal, being chased by Saul, and he's insulting. And he's asking, why should I take my bread and water and the meat I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to men coming from who knows where? So he's being cheap too. And David took insults. He was offended. Okay? And so he's taking steps. Now, mind you, this is the guy who just previously, not long ago, had snipped a piece of Saul's cloak and said, see, I could have killed you, but I did not. And that's, just total opposite compared to what we're seeing now. Okay, now this is kind of one of those things, and this is actually one of the reasons I like David, is because of how fallible he is, how he makes, yes, he was a man after God's own heart, but he keeps making these mistakes. This is a mistake, ultimately. He's overreacting to this insult. It's an insult, yes, but, he's taking 400 men with swords, to react to this. Okay, this is a bit of overreaction, maybe just a little bit. One of the servants told Abigail, Nabal's wife, David sent messengers from the wilderness to give our master his greetings, but he hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us, and the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day there were a wall around us, and the whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He's such a wicked man that no one can talk to him. So the servants are obviously scared. The servants are very upset. They know what's coming, okay? I mean, they know. I mean, these guys are coming with swords, and they're going to lay waste to the household. They're going to come through. They're going to kill. They're going to slaughter, and all this for an insult that their master did. And they're in fear. They're in actual fear of their lives. They've seen these kind of things happen. So they go to Abigail. This is Abigail. This is where we see her react to this, and the servants they actually liked these guys, but they don't want to get killed by them. So, and disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. That includes Abigail. That includes the servants. That includes everything. So, Abigail acted quickly. We continue. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, "Go on ahead, I'll follow you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. That's a lot of food. She has an idea of how many people she's dealing with. She is loading up with food. There's a lot of food at this household, and she's just loading up on the donkeys and going. She's been running a household. She has an idea of what it takes to feed men. And that was the role of many women in ancient Israel. So, verse 20, we continue. As she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there were David and his men descending toward her. She met them. David had just said, "It's been useless. All my watching over this fellow's property in the wilderness, so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back evil for good. May God deal with David. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him." Let's read that again. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him. He's planning a slaughter. He is going way overboard on this. Okay, have you ever just lost your cool and lost your temper? I have recently. Okay, this is a person who has power. Okay, and he's losing his temper, and he's getting ready to kill every male there. Okay, and it's going to be a massacre. Okay, over an insult. David is not acting as a man of God's own heart at this point. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before him with her face to the ground. She fell at his feet and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say." So she's naming herself a servant to David. "Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. And as for me, your servant, I did not see the men my Lord sent. And now, my lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives, and you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my lord be like Nabal. And let this gift, which your servant has brought to my lord, be given to the men who follow you." A lot happened right here. There's a lot that just happened right here. Okay? Abigail, she saw David. She got off her donkey, bowed down before him, and just prostrated herself to him. And she called herself his servant. So, we have that going on. Asked permission, "Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Nabal." This is her husband she's talking about. "Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Nabal. He is just like his name. His name means fool." And if you look in the history books, it often means fool. Okay? "And folly goes with him. As for me, your servant, I did not see the men my lord sent. And now, my lord..." So she didn't get a chance to see the men show up. Remember, she got told of this secondhand. "And now, my lord, as surely the Lord gives... As surely as the Lord your God lives, and as you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent on harming my lord be like Nabal." Because she's there, she's like, "Hey, wait a second. You're not going to do this. It's a bad idea. The Lord your God has kept you from this bloodshed, which you're about to perform, you're getting ready to do. And let this gift, all this food that I just brought, be given to the men. Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my Lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life," she knew who he was. "The life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies he will hurl away as from the pocket of a sling. When the Lord has fulfilled my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him, and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or having avenged himself. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servants." This entire time, now you think about this, she knew exactly who he was. She knew who David was before he was king. She knew he was running from Saul. She knew that that he didn't want this blood on his hands, but she certainly didn't want him to have this blood on his hands. These are her people. And that she essentially spoke to the prophecy that he is going to be king. She spoke into that, and when the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him, and has appointed him ruler over Israel. Okay, that's big, because that kind of tells you he's known in this area of what's going on. Nabal, his name might mean fool, but he was aware of who David was. So when he said earlier on, in verse 10, who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. That is a direct insult to what's going on between David and Saul. Okay, so, little dog barking in the background there. David said to Abigail, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgments, and for keeping me from bloodshed this day, and from avenging myself with my own hands." He's aware at this point that this was a bad thing. "Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, who has kept me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, not one male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by daybreak." Remember what he said. He said he was actually vowing to God that he would do this. This was a promise that he was making. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him. That's every single one of his servants, every single one of his soldiers, every single one of his shearers, every single one of his workers. He was going to kill them all. Okay? And she was aware of this to a certain extent, at least. And he's saying, at this point in time, he's accepted what she said. "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. May you be blessed for your good judgments." Okay. Otherwise, then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him and said, "Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request." Well, great relief at this point. He's recognized his potential folly. He's glad he didn't have to do it. I'm sure that halfway, as he's traveling with his men, he's probably aware that he probably didn't really want to do this. I mean, might have been looking for a way out even. "You good, boy?" My dog's kind of curling up and getting himself settled in for a little bit. When Abigail went to Nabal, he was in the house holding a banquet like that of a king. He was in high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing at all until daybreak. Then in the morning, when Nabal was sober, his wife told him all these things. And his heart failed him, and he became like stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. So she was smart. She was a smart woman, okay? Her husband was drunk. And, and he was, it would not have gone well. I mean, we already know he's an irritable guy. And he's kind of a jerk. And he thinks really highly of himself. And she was like, "I'm not going to tell him this stuff. This is going to go badly. I just took all this food over here. I intervened on his behalf. This is not going to go well if I tell him at this point in time." So in the morning, when he's sober, she tells him. Now this is not without risk to her. Okay, women were often not treated well at all, and she had defied her husband's wishes. He clearly made his wishes being, "I don't want to give this guy anything." And she went out of her way. She collected, got all this food together, went there, abased herself before David, and stopped him from coming to kill him. Here he is. He is in such shock, his heart fails him, okay? And he became like stone, which means I would assume that he probably fell into a coma or just became very sick. Heart attacks are horrible things, right? And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Praise be to the Lord who has upheld my case against Nabal for treating me with contempt. He has kept his servant from doing wrong and has brought Nabal's wrongdoing down on his own head." Pretty severe reaction. But now David has the satisfaction of knowing the guy's dead anyway. And he didn't have to do it. Then David sent word to Abigail asking her to become his wife. his servants went to Carmel and said to Abigail, "David has sent us to you to take you to become his wife." She bowed down with her face to the ground and said, "I am your servant, and I am ready to serve you and wash the feet of my Lord's servants." Abigail quickly got on a donkey and, attended by her 5 female servants, went with David's messengers and became his wife. David had also married Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they both were his wives. But Saul had given his daughter Michal, David's wife, to Paltiel, son of Laish, who was from Galim. That's a whole other story. So normally would be a period of mourning for her husband, and a proper period of time between the death of one husband and the taking of another husband. It sounds like it probably wasn't a very good marriage, honestly. It probably was very contentious. Here she was, a very, very intelligent and willful woman, a very capable woman, and was running a very large household. But he probably treated her like garbage, to be honest, just by what little we know of him. And she was like, I will make, because of what David sent you to take you to become his wife. And she's like, okay. Doesn't sound like she was all that heartbroken about the loss of the loss of her husband. But here's the funny thing is we talk about wives, submit to your husbands and in everything, and that's what Paul says in Ephesians 5:24. And women were supposed to revere and respect their husbands as leaders, and certainly not say anything bad about them. We see Abigail, doing quite the opposite here. She went behind her husband's back, did something she knew he wouldn't approve of, and she even talked bad about him to David and to calm David down. His name means fool, and he is indeed a fool. So, she had to understand that when all this panned out, when all this came down, and and her husband found out about it, it wasn't going to go well for her. At this point, obviously, like I said, we say God spared her Nabal's wrath. Nabal had a heart attack of some kind, and cardiac arrest, we assume, and 10 days later he died. So this is kind of something different because so often we hear about the wives submitting to your husbands and everything. I was talking about my own wife about this, and I got a look of death from her about this. And I was like, no. This is what Abigail did. She was actually defying her husband in order to save him. She was serving her husband in a way that it would keep him alive. That was her goal. Well, actually, her goal was to keep everybody alive, and serving his household in a way. Here in one place here, I read, Abigail was an ideal wife. She didn't submit to her husband's stupidity. Rather, she protected her husband and his interests. She took the initiative when he was unable or unwilling to act, and even apologized for the fact that he was a jerk. So these are this is Abigail. Abigail, we don't hear a lot about Abigail. She kind of fades away after this as just one more of his wives. But she was a very, very capable woman. And an obscure character in the Bible, and I just wanted to highlight it. I hope you really got something out of this. I know I did reading it. Right down to, Abigail has her name is derived from 2 Hebrew words, father and happiness, and means my father's happiness. And if you're the father of a daughter, you can see that. If you're a father at all, you can see that with your children. They bring you happiness and frustration. So if you know somebody that has the name of Abigail, I mean, here's her namesake. Here's where her name comes from in the Bible, and how wonderful is that? Anyway, God bless. I hope you have a great day. I hope you get something out of this and take it forward in your life. And if you have any questions, or you just want to discuss this further, down in the comments, just leave a message. I do tend to keep up with them. I don't get that many yet anyway. So, and God bless. Have a great day.